Hi, everyone. We're about to get started, so if you could kindly take your seats. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome, and thank you for joining us. Thank you to our friends joining online as well. And happy International Women's Day. My name is Alicia Hammond. I am a gender specialist focused on innovation and technology with the World Bank Group. And I am delighted to welcome you to a discussion on leadership with Christine Lagarde, Managing Director of the IMF, and Kristalina Georgieva, Interim President of the World Bank Group. A few housekeeping items before we get started. Firstly, if you could kindly put your cell phones on silent. Secondly, we would love for you to join the conversation online using our hashtag Women's Day. And for those of you who sent us questions beforehand, thank you so much. We really appreciate them. We've actually shared them with our speakers, and they will be integrated into the discussion rather than having a traditional Q&A. So this morning I was reflecting on what today really means to me. And I realized that my life would have been very different if I didn't have the family and community that I did who really believed in me and really believed in my potential. As the saying goes, talent is universal, but opportunity is not. So I think today is really about believing and recognizing in the power and potential of women and girls to be leaders and change makers in their communities and across their societies, and doing whatever we can do to level the playing field. This is why it was an immense honor to meet these two incredible women who are tireless champions of gender equality and who have risen to the top of their field. They are emblematic of what women can truly achieve. They're an absolute inspiration to all of us, and especially to me. By the way, this is an extra special moment in time because for the first time in history, both of our organizations are being led by women. This is not a fluke. This is a sign of things to come. So join me in giving a very warm welcome to Christine and Kristalina.
Thank you so much for your introduction, and thank you for telling us a little bit of your story. So first of all, welcome to all of you. Welcome, Kristalina, for coming across the street. Next time we'll do it the other way around. And we'll still be together, yes, no question about it. And happy Women's Day to all of you, men and women in the room, women and men in the room. And I really appreciate for myself that many men are here. There are many heads of department. There are many board members of the IMF who are here as well, men and women. And I think it's really a blessing that you could come for what will be an exceptional moment. Even if we said nothing, just nothing, we just smile at you for 30 minutes. It is still historical. And yet we will have contributed nothing. But so what Kristalina and I decided to do is that we were not going to bother with, a facilitator, a moderator, because we don't want to be facilitated. We don't want to be moderated. We are passionate about all this. And we're going to ask each other questions. And we know roughly what the first one will be, but then the conversation will take us where it takes us, okay? So we are together for 30 minutes. Those of you who have this urge to attend a meeting, do so very discreetly. Don't bash the door. Don't make us all feel bad that you are disappointed with the outcome of these discussions. No, 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 no. So here we go. I'll start. My friend, you are an unbelievably successful trailblazer, glass ceiling breaking woman, and you have a very strong economic background. But wherever you have been in your career, at the bank, at the European Commission, in various places where you have taken your talents, I was just wondering, looking at your bio, whether your literacy in numbers in particular, and your ability to understand where there is a shortfall, where there is something wrong, where the budget is not in the right place, whether that has been critically important for you and whether it has helped you.
Christine, thank you for having us all here. Before I answer, I want to do this. I want to pinch myself. If anybody was to tell me in 1993, when I joined the World Bank for the first time, that one day I would be sitting in front of this audience with the managing director of the fund, who is a woman, and I would be running the bank, I would have laughed my head off. But here we are. And it is more to come. So in my professional life, I have been very fortunate to dare. And to dare is a very important thing. When people tell you that cannot be done, you dare to say, well, why not? And yes, being quite numerical helps, because then you go and you make your rational argument based on facts, not on fiction. I will tell you one of my many, many stories of using numbers to do good for people. I was just elected for the European Commission, Commissioner for Humanitarian Aid. I walked in my very first meeting of the Commission right after the Haiti earthquake. I looked at our program, and I can see that financially it was short, that we needed more. And I looked at our capacity to move financing, very quickly came to the conclusion that we were 90 million euros short. And I made a pitch in this very, very first meeting of the Commission. And it was very interesting. We went around the table. Everybody was introducing themselves with, I'm so-and-so, and I'm very important because of this and that. And here I was, and I said, and I'm sure that none of you here, very important people, would object to providing 90 million euros additional to the people of Haiti. We are walking out of the room, and one of the commissioners turns to me and says, so what happened here? We all talked, and Kristalina walked with the money. So yes, having your numbers right helps.
Absolutely. You know what? I'm going to tell you a story because I learned the hard way. When I was don't do what I did, okay? You do what Kristalina just said. Don't do what I did. So I was a junior lawyer, and I was working on this settlement agreement between a company and a director. And it had been very contentious, but finally they had reached agreement. And the deal was that the company was going to pay that director who was to go 1 million francs at the time. And it was a big deal given what he was getting. And so there I go, prepare the settlement, all the right formulas are in there, it's legally correct and all the rest of it. And as you typically do in those settlement agreements, you put the number with the numbers, and then you open parentheses and you write with letters the actual number. And it was 1 million francs. But I did not pay attention enough to the numbers in numbers. And instead of 1 million francs, it was 10 million francs. And because it was so contentious, that bloody director took action, filed a lawsuit, took us about 3 years to settle and to eventually arrive at the one that had been initially agreed because he was of bad faith. I tell you something, that teaches you a lesson for life. So sometimes my teams and my staff are a bit surprised that I can just remember, this number to the decimal. They now know why it is, because you're short of a number or you had a number, and that's bad news. So don't do it.
So I have always been keen to ask you a question that I'm taking advantage of being right here in this audience to ask. What role being a synchronized swimmer played in making you who you are and defining your leadership style?
If any of you likes French films, I highly recommend something that is called Le Grand Bain. It's probably an English version somehow, but it's the story of a bunch of disenchanted, vaguely depressed, out of hope and expectations men, and suddenly they meet synchronized swimming. Seriously. And they go through training, and they are, it's tough until they eventually succeed. And I'm telling you that story because this is a little bit what synchronized swimming actually teaches you. It teaches you that you have to swim as long and as hard as swimmers or water polo players. Number one. Number two, you have to pay attention to rhythm and to music. Number three, even when it is tough and rough and difficult, you still have to smile. So the national coach actually used to tell us, grit your teeth and smile and get on with it. And that teaches you also that. But more importantly, it taught me two things that have stayed with me. It teaches you resilience. Because even if you're lagging behind at the end of the ranking of the swimmers after the required particular posture, you have to just grit your teeth, work hard, and know that there is always another step, another step, another step, and that you can progress. That's one thing. The second thing that it teaches you impeccably is teamwork. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't swim with the team, if you're in it for you and you only, you team players are going to remind you very gently by keeping you underwater just a little bit longer. And that is not fun. So resilience and teamwork, certainly, and losing and getting on with it. Because you don't win all the time. You're not always ahead of the other team, and sometimes the Brits will beat the French or the Canadians will be better, and you have to learn how to lose and then bring yourself together, work with the team, and yet again be resilient and work harder. So that was it.
Well, the listening to you, there are many things that resonate. One that resonates very strongly is to bring everybody together, and especially when it is hard, to make it be as much as possible still fun. So you can enjoy.
You did that yesterday. I heard you
had
a bit of. We
did it yesterday. Those who may not know what we did yesterday, fun is a very serious business. We had the first in the history of the Bretton Woods institution flash mob across the street. You can see it online. And may I say, for the people who participated, and I see many of them in this audience, we were awesome. This is not, Christine, this is not your grandmother's World Bank. It's a very different place. But
it is hard work, because I remember that evening cocktail party, and you said, I really have to go because I have to rehearse.
Of course. The other thing that resonates very much is that sense of discipline that success cannot ever be achieved without. And I have always admired you for that discipline. So if you were to look forward, how do you see the next generation, the young women that are in this audience, succeeding? What is the advice you would give them?
Well, I would say that everything that we have said, which is, discipline, attention to details, daring. Discipline, details, daring. That's triple D.
Yes.
I think all that matters. I would say that ganging up together, finding allies and friends, not necessarily women, by the way. There are people from all genders that are prepared to help each other. But I think that by definition, in the fields where we operate, women are still, unfortunately, a minority. It's not the case at the bank. I know you've reached the 50-50 in many instances, including at the top level, and that's brilliant, but it's not the case everywhere. Yeah.
Just to make sure that people don't think we are making that up, could I please ask the female vice presidents in the audience to stand up? Stand up. And Keiko, come this way. Stand up. We also have, sorry, now I need to do take the next step. Could I please ask the male vice presidents of the bank to stand up? So here they are. And exactly 50-50 in the audience, as it is supposed to be.
So to my point, it's forging alliance, being together, particularly in an environment where clearly women are still a minority. And I think that in the economics field, hopefully Jeanette Yellen, who is now the president of the American Economists Association, is going to look into it. But there are clear minority issues and not enough attention being paid to the work that women economists do, to the research that they produced, to the enormous talent and energy that they display. And I hope that she and other economists will also do that, because it has to be fair, and it is not fair yet.
There is a very interesting study that was published by Kansas University that looks into the inequalities and biases in the economics profession. And I took out of it two observations. One, that the glass ceiling in economics is thicker than in any other profession. And women economists are more miserable, not only by women compared to women in other professions, but also compared to men economists. So they're more miserable. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with it, because I am surrounded by women economists, and they are perky, happy, smiling.
But if they're not published equally, if they're discriminated against, if the questions asked are different because they're female, I can understand why you feel miserable. So that's what needs to change, I think.
And the second interesting observation in the study is that when you compare abstracts from publications in reputable journals, the abstracts written by women through the editing process become much better than they originally were, and the abstracts written by men are kind of lousier. And the explanation is that women are just being held to a higher standard, to which I say, bring it on. That makes us better professionals. So I actually think that what you and I and many women have experienced, that very often we will be working harder, we would be held to a higher standard than our colleagues men, ultimately works well for women and works well for everyone, because it makes women more productive, more effective, higher contributors to our society.
Yeah. Now,
This being said,
Yeah,
if I may
go
just
ahead.
finish, this being said, I still want for my granddaughter, for my daughter, to be equal just because they are.
Yeah, for sure. I want to come back to you. You mentioned dare. You know, dare me if I can't do that. Looking back, what are the big risks that you've taken in your life? One or two moments where you thought, ugh, shall I go there? Shall I do this? I'm choosing, but I'm taking a big risk.
Well, it's a very, very good question. In 1990, I got an invitation this invitation arrives in Bulgaria to go and be a visiting professor in the University of the South Pacific in Fiji. I had to open
Everybody
the atlas.
wants to do TA in Fiji, by the way.
Well, you know, I had no idea. Actually, I really had no idea where Fiji was. I mean, remember, I lived up to that moment on the other side of the Iron Curtain.
Yeah.
So I got this invitation, and I had to figure out how to get visas for Fiji, for Australia, whether to go, what is going to meet me there. And that was a big question. Do I dare? Do I dare from Bulgaria to go to the other side of the world to teach economics in a university far, far, far away? So I did dare. And I'm arriving in Fiji, in Suva. The lady at passport control takes my passport, types something, looks at me and says, "Where are you from?" I said, "Bulgaria." She types again and says, "There is no such country." So I must admit there were these 10 minutes when I thought, I know we are going through transition, but come on, the country must be still there. You know, I traveled a long way. So that was one moment when I dared to go to the other side of the world and put myself to the test, can I do it? The second time when I actually truly dared was when Jim Wolfenson, as president of the bank, called me up to go to Russia and be country director for the Russian Federation. And at that time, many of my colleagues called and said, "Oh, Kristalina, do you really want to go to Russia? The program is really sinking. It is hard for women." And then I thought a little bit, and I said, of course I will go to Russia. One, I owe it to the Russian women. An interesting fact, my very first reception in Moscow, Minister Lavrov invites all the diplomatic community.
He was already there.
He just came back from New York. That was his first month, and it was my first month. So I'm going to this reception, and there were about 250 people, 2 women, me and the cultural attaché of the Brazilian embassy.
Wow.
But I thought that it was a great thing. It was a great experience. And I also must say, when I was leaving Moscow, I had tears coming out of my eyes because it was such a rich, enriching experience to be there. So yeah,
You spoke the language when you arrived there.
Yes, yes. How about you? What are the moments that?
Well, I was asking you if you spoke the language because I think the first big risk I took was when I was 17 and my father had passed away the year before, and I was a bit lost and desperate. And I just decided to leave France, to leave the family, and to go to the United States. But I hardly spoke the language, so I started with a bit of a tough time.
Yeah. Well, but this is what made you who you are, an example for everybody to follow. I mean, it is actually the reason I think of these moments is also because my advice to all the women in the audience is dare. Do not pass on opportunities. In each case, when I would be asked to go up, my very first reaction always is, oh, am I ready for that? There may be somebody else. How about so-and-so? And I know that this is a very, very typical of women. So, dare.
That's very true. Very true. Anybody who has read The Confidence Code? Have you? No? Some of you must have, yeah. It's across the board. And by the way, any of you who has a 12-year-old daughter, I'm not advertising. Kathy Kay is a good friend, but still, but she's done the young. Kathy is here? Oh, sorry. Okay. But she's done the version for the girls of the Confidence Code, explaining with very much more fun drawings and cartoons and quizzes and things that I did enjoy that too, actually. What you have to do to gain that level of confidence so that you don't ask yourself the question, do I really deserve this? Am I up to it? Aren't people going to say something about it? You know, this whole set of things that goes through your mind, went through mine, goes through mine all the time, you know. Nobody is spared that stops things that, you know, happen to you. But you can learn how to overcome and how to sort of take confidence in yourself so that you overcome that moment. And so that take a deep breath. You use your plexus, your solar plexus, you know that thing here? You really tighten the muscle, breathe hard, think about something really nice, and just charge on, because you can do it.
Yep. And it is believing in yourself. This is so very important. If you don't believe in yourself, why would anybody else believe in you? And that,
but you know, the point that our great master of ceremony made is, I think, the one that I come down to myself. If you don't have love from somewhere, from somebody, doesn't have to be necessarily the conventional person, but if you don't have love, you don't have confidence, and you cannot give it to somebody else and nurture it yourself. So whatever you do after this meeting, give love. Yeah.
well,
somebody will have to tell us when we stop, by the way, because we have a clock here which has been saying 30 for the last 35 minutes.
I hope somebody is actually checking on that. But I want to come to a question that we got from the audience to both of us. And the question is, if you look back in your life, what is it that you think was the most impactful experience that made you who you are? Christine.
I alluded to it. It's the year I spent in this country when I was 17, because I had gone through the trauma of having lost my father through very difficult circumstances, having helped my mother and all my brothers, and you know, sort of taking the risk of checking out completely in order to rebuild myself and learn a new language, a new culture, a new environment, and remain strong out of that. So I think that has been defining in terms of learning about myself, learning about what mattered to me, and overcoming what, you know, it's not peculiar to me. All of you, all of us, we go through things in our life that are just hard. And you know, to have the ability to find the strength to overcome those moments and come out of it stronger for longer is that's what builds you into who you are.
When I look back in my own life, what set me on a course that ultimately brought me here to the World Bank was actually choosing my PhD thesis topic, which was environment. And I was driven to environment for two very different but very powerful reasons. One was a member of my family got very serious illness because of groundwater
Pollution.
Heavy metal pollution. Completely avoidable. If he were to know, you just need to drink water from a different source and the problem goes away. So I thought environment is really hugely important and underestimated as factor in our lives. But the second reason was, in these days, these are 80s in Bulgaria, I had to choose my topic of dissertation by quoting the significance of the topic in the writings of Marx, Lenin, and the Communist Party congresses. Marx, I had no problem with. I don't have even today. He's a philosopher who deserves place in history. Lenin, I had a little bit more of a problem because of the way, life has evolved for many of us. And I sure did not want to quote the party congresses. There's no way. So then I'm sitting and I'm thinking, but I need to find the topic. What is it that these guys have said nothing about? Well, it was the environment.
I think we have to stop, right?
Yes, that is.
Regrettably, we have to stop at this point in time, but you're not to move at all. Just stay in your seat, because a nice photographer, Steve, is going to come here to the stage. He's the only man tolerated on this podium for the moment. And we're all going to be on the photos. He has a great lens. Are you going to see everybody, including over there? If you can move closer. This side is okay, but yeah, come closer. And we just look at you?
Actually, if we could have you stand on the bottom, that would be best.
Okay.
And everybody's got one of these, or many people have got these on their seats.
Okay.
Hold them up.
So,
Okay, and apparently you all have that on your seat.
Yes, of course.
So we all hold it.
Yeah, if you could
and
And we both go down here.